We have with us here Shannon Thomas. Shannon, as you are sipping on one last bit of water before you hop on the live stream, I see. Oh, I like that head movement. You are on mute, so if you want to unmute, make sure that control is off. It's all right. It's the interface here. It's not you. It's the tech. But thank you so much for joining us. I know you worked on Amy Vilela's campaign. I know you've also done some work with Graham Elwood, and you're associated with Ron Placone, I think is the legal term.
Don't hold that against her. Don't hold that against her. That's not
an unindicted co-conspirator.
It's not fair to her.
So thank you for thank you very much for joining us. If you can teach me how to do that dance move, that would be amazing. And introduce yourself to our audience if they haven't seen Knock Down the House, and if they're not familiar with you. Tell us a little about the work you do, what you're working on now, and why is net neutrality so important that you took time out of your day to join us and talk about this?
All right. That's a lot that I'm going to try to fit into what I hope
30
is...
30 seconds. Go.
All right, let's go. Hi, I'm Shannon Thomas. You may have seen me in Knock Down the House, but if you haven't seen it yet, check it out on Netflix. Otherwise, you really should not know who I am. I'm just like a normal person who got into the grassroots organizing game after the 2016 elections and really just wanted to try to make a difference. So I originally got involved with Justice Democrats and Brand New Congress as a speechwriter, email writer, general do everything that you can while you're on campaign sort of person. Eventually moved into fundraising directing, and that was the big position I took on Amy Vilela's campaign. We managed to raise over $200,000 from around an average $22 donation. It was a really impressive and heartily run campaign that was against some serious odds in Harry Reid territory. Unfortunately, we lost the primary. Spoiler alert. But something that I've taken from kind of this whirlwind of a cycle and of a year is that some of the losses are just as important as the wins. And sometimes you have to know what you're willing to lose in order to understand what it is we're actually fighting for. One of those things being net neutrality, which is basically we all deserve as public citizens access to information, to communications, and to an ability to pressure our government. And if we really think about what net neutrality means for us as a movement, a lot of our organizing for the progressive movement is digital. It's on YouTube, it's on Facebook and Instagram and Twitter and Snapchat. And that's a lot of the ways that we communicate together as activists and as on the ground organizers. So that's something I'd like to pop into the conversation. Obviously, just access to information and knowing no profanity, what our government is doing, what our president, what our Congress, what our Supreme Court is doing is extremely important. And I personally don't trust private companies to hold the reins to that access to information.
Well, let me put it. Let me ask you this way, Shannon. So, in all the campaign work that you've done, on a scale of 1 to 10, how important was a free and open internet?
10.
There
million.
We go.
10 cajillion. No,
it goes up to 11.
I can't imagine if I was trying to organize that sort of insurgent campaign in a place like Egypt, where crackdowns on Facebook, on Twitter, on Skype, on YouTube, on WhatsApp, all were ways that the government put a stranglehold on the Arab Spring in that country and all throughout the Arab world. We have to think about what that could look like for revolutionary organizers here in the United States if we start ceding some of that power to companies like AT&T, Verizon, Singular, or Facebook, Instagram. Like, those groups should not be the ones who regulate and decide who gets to see what information is viewable or how fast you get that information.
I like what you said earlier, that you're just a regular person like us. I'm not sure that's true. I think I could not raise $200,000. So I think you have some pretty extraordinary talents, I'm sure. But, one of the things that I've been seeing a lot from people who talk to us, and even in the Twitch chat today, people have talked about how they feel helpless. People who live in Kentucky and have called, for example, Mitch McConnell's office to tell him how they feel about net neutrality today. And his office, isn't picking up the phone. It goes to voicemail. The voicemail, conveniently enough, is too full. And I think I hear from a lot of people who think, well, I'm just one person. I'm an ordinary person. There's nothing I can do. It's these big companies. They have billions of dollars at their disposal. What can I do? Oh, one phone call doesn't make a difference. One letter doesn't make a difference. You seem to have a different idea about that. You see yourself as somebody who's a regular person who just dove in and made a difference. So tell me a little bit about what these people watching the Twitch stream can do as just regular people, why it's powerful to be a regular person too, and how net neutrality enables us regular people to share our voices.
Yeah. So the best metaphor I can think about maybe is Senator Mike Gravel's former presidential campaign video where he drops a pebble into the water and ripples go out everywhere. We live in a world right now that is so global, so connected, online particularly, that one action on the part of one person spreads like wildfire. If you do it with good intent, with authenticity, with the right motives in mind, there's a lot of room there to build a groundswell in the grassroots movement, whether that's by sharing messages rapidly or having like phone lines going off the hook to these Senate and House offices. If it's, okay, everyone in your Facebook network donates $1 to a particular campaign or a particular cause, $2,000 turns into $4,000, turns into $500,000 faster than you think if you are setting off things in your vicinity and inspiring your friends. As far as things that you can do right now, go find out who is registering voters in your district. Go knock doors and canvass for an issue you care about. I know the Sunrise Movement is always doing canvasses. I bet Fight for Your Future has some ways you can get involved too.
Thanks for the plug.
Yeah. Even if it's only $1 a month, that's $1 that I can decide not to go get a coffee one morning. And that sort of support, whether it's for a grassroots organization or a campaign, actually means parts of people's salaries every month. And that's something that we can do. And I would go so far to say as, run for office or find someone that you think in your community is an example of good leadership and help them run for office. Because I think the thing that I'm most tired of, and what you mentioned about Senator McConnell, is that there's this like fakeness around your like public profile and what you're supposed to be as this like public celebrity in House or Senate. And you're not actually a real person. Like there is zero authenticity, zero trust, at least on my part, that any of the people in office are actually acting on your best interests or even on their own convictions. So find someone who does lead like that and elect them, because, I think this is our opportunity to really overturn the system as it stands. And if we don't do it soon, it's going to get harder because of things like the repeal of net neutrality.
That's incredibly inspiring to hear you frame the conversation the way you do. And sometimes I find it hard myself to be kind of optimistic. I see so much bad news all the time when I'm on Reddit, when I'm on Twitch, when I'm, getting sorts of news about what's going on in the world and what people in our government are doing. It can be very depressing at times. Working with Fight for the Future, I think it isn't optimism, it's realism. It's understanding that we can win, and I really think we're going to win. I don't think that's optimistic. I think it's realistic. And it doesn't mean that I'm going to win every battle. In fact, I think I lose a lot more than I win, but we tend to win and accumulate these really big victories, and that snowballs. So the first time I called my congressperson's office, I remember I was very nervous. My heart was pumping, and I called, and they're like, okay, thank you. And that was it. And I hung up and I was like, that didn't change anything, you know? And it was this, I don't know if I had an expectation that somebody would listen to me or change their policy because I said something well. That's not really the way it works. It's about consistently speaking your voice. It's about consistently developing your opinion and your stance. And because of that, you have many different opportunities to speak to people. We have this great opportunity to speak with you. You have this great opportunity to share your voice on the Twitch channel, in documentaries. I mean, it's not that you get the one shot and you knock it out of the park. It's that you're doing all these little things all the time. A lot of times it doesn't feel like it's working, but it accumulates. And again, I think that's how I battle what I see as pessimism. And I don't replace it with optimism. I replace it with realism and say, okay, I can see how it's working and when it works. And even when I've lost a battle, I learned so much and I'm ready to rock the next time.
Yeah, absolutely. I think two things that are really heartening to me. One is that our opposition is not necessarily as organized as we think they are. There's a lot of cracks in the system and a lot of just like complacency and mediocrity and like laziness. So there are some, ways that we can get through, whether it's by figuring out digital alternatives, or like I'm concerned about the internet and net neutrality right now. So I'm like, how do we create an alternative, progressive, like radio network or like, but there are things.
Well, I tried that a couple times. There've been a few attempts at that.
But I mean, like the point that I'm trying to make is that, we think that folks like Joe Crowley are just like locked in. But if you can find the crack in the system and exploit it, for instance, like in New York, you can't register new Democratic voters after October 13th, the year before the primary election. That ended up working in Alex's favor because Joe Crowley couldn't buy a bunch of new voters and put them in last minute. He wasn't prepared. Find the crack in the system and work at it. And like Alex said, it might be 1 out of 10 times that you have a success, you get 9 rejections, but maybe that one time you walk into a senator or congressperson's office and they don't have plans for black shit. But you present something that actually works, put it on their table, give them something that they can do. They might just run with it because they don't have any ideas themselves. That's the sad truth of it. But we do have power. We just have to be creative in ways of undermining and subverting the current system.
I've worked for some very large media organizations in the past, and I haven't always loved some of the business practices that they've undertaken. I think there are really great people working in those organizations. Those are ordinary people too. A lot of them share our viewpoints. We see even right now there are a lot of employees at places like Facebook and Google who are speaking their minds and having protests and sit-ins and advocating for greater responsibility. So I think you're right. There are a lot of people who can do a lot of things. It encourages those ordinary rank and file people. It encourages people in leadership positions to know that like the public feels this way. And one of the most powerful things that I believe is like freedom is more profitable. It really is. It's more profitable for everybody. It isn't more profitable sometimes for monopoly players. It means they lose some control, but it leads to greater profitability for everybody. And I know that I hate having to sometimes frame like human rights and issues like that in terms of profitability. It makes me feel a little icky, to be honest, but that is certainly a lever that some people in positions of power respond to. And when, as you've said, if you present people with a plan and say, this will work better, if you can show certain organizations that actually the public wants this and this is better for them and you can make more money by being a better human being, like that's a very compelling argument for some people. And so I think, consistently hitting people with different messages, understanding these topics in a deep way that allows you to converse with a lot of different people in a lot of different ways is very helpful too. You clearly, are able to speak to a lot of different people about the situation in a robust way. Can you tell us any other final thoughts or how people can follow the great work you're doing online or other venues?
All right. Well, one final thought that you had me thinking about is when you apply pressure to a system, it either bends or it breaks. So if we continue to apply strong pressure on a particular issue into a particular body, they either have to adapt or there's going to be some workaround. People are going to create an alternative to what they're doing, and it's going to end up breaking their whole system. So we're giving them the opportunity to bend, or we'll break you. But with that, you can follow me at Shannon A. Thomas. I forget if it's a normal A or an AY on Twitter and Instagram. But yeah, check me out. Not like that. And also, I'm working with Amy Villela on a political memoir and a kind of behind the scenes look at the progressive movement. So it's not done yet. We're about 150 pages in, but look for that around Christmas time.
When you write your memoir, I demand the title of your memoir is "Look at Me, Not Like That."
I think it was "Check Me Out," not like that.
Check me out, not like that. My bad. There we go.
I was thinking like work in progress, but that maybe. Yeah.
Definitely. All right. I only ask 50%. That's all I ask for my contribution.
Excellent. Thank you.
Please feel free to stick around if you have to go. I understand. We thank you for your time.